Hello everyone, my name is Aayushi and my today's topic is the nerve impulse. A nerve impulse, like a lightning strike, is an electrical phenomenon. A nerve impulse occurs because of a difference in the electrical charge across the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane of what? Of a neuron. How does the difference comes in the electrical charge? It is because of the answer involves ions which are electrically charged atom or molecules. In nerve impulse, the first one we will conclude about the resting potential. What is resting potential? When a neuron is not actively transmitting a nerve impulse, it is in a resting state, ready to transmit a nerve impulse. During the resting state, the sodium potassium pump maintains a difference in charge across the cells and potassium ion into the cell. The sodium potassium pump moves both ion from the areas of the lower to the higher concentration using energy in the form of ATP and carrier proteins in the cell membrane. Sodium. What is the sodium? Sodium is a principal ion in the fluid outside the cell. That is, the concentration of the sodium is more present outside the cell when compared to the inside. So our question is, what is inside the cell? K plus is the principal. Potassium is the principal ions that is in the fluid inside. Sodium is present outside and the potassium is present inside. These difference in the concentration create an electrical gradient across the cell membrane called the resting potential. The concentration between the sodium and the potassium, it create the electrical gradient across the cell membrane, their difference, and this is known as the resting potential. Tightly controlling membrane resting potential is critical for the transmission of the nerve impulse. Controlling resting membrane potential, we have to tightly control it. It should be in a controlled manner for the transmission of the nerve impulses. Now let's conclude about the action potential. What is action potential? An action potential, also called a nerve impulse, is an electrical charge that travels along the membrane of the neuron. This charge travels along the membrane of the neuron, like within the neuron it travels. It can be generated when a neuron membrane potential is changed by a chemical signals from a nearby cells. Okay. In an action potential, the cell membrane potential changes quickly from the negative to the positive sodium ion. It doesn't take even a millisecond to change from negative to the positive potassium ion, as sodium ions flow into the cell and potassium comes out of the cell. We already know that potassium is more inside and sodium is more outside. Okay, so potassium, this charge quickly from negative to positive as sodium ion flow into the cell through the ion channels. With the help of the ion channels, sodium flow inside and the potassium flow out of the cell. The change in the membrane potential result in the cell becoming depolarized. Cell here become depolarized and an action potential work on all or nothing basis. That is, this membrane potential has to reach a certain level of the depolarization called the threshold. Otherwise, an action potential will not start. This threshold potential varies but is generally about 15 milliwatt. Its general potential, it can be vary, but it's generally, if we talk about generally, it's about 15 milliwatt. More positive than cell resting membrane potential. The resting membrane potential is more negative, and the thing that we are talking about, the threshold potential, it is more positive than the resting membrane potential. If a membrane depolarization does not reach the threshold level, if the depolarization of a membrane doesn't reach the threshold level, an action potential will not happen. Action potential will not happen because it has not reached the threshold level. And next, the first channel to open are the sodium ion channels. First channel to open are what? These are the sodium ion channels which allow the sodium to enter the cell. This resulting increase in the positive charge inside the cells. This is called depolarization of a membrane. Potassium ion channel then open. Then what open then? Potassium ion channels. What they allow? They allowing potassium ions to flow out of the cell, which ends the action potential. The inside of the membrane become negative again. Okay, the thing that is inside the membrane, it has become negative again. First it was negative, then depolarization takes place, it become positive, and then it is again negative here. This is the repolarization. What this process is called, this is the repolarization. Both of the channel are close. Here both channel are close. So the sodium potassium pump, the resting potential restores the resting potential of the minus 70 megawatt. Now when it is all done, the sodium and the potassium channel, they regains the resting potential. What's the resting potential? Is the minus 70 millivolt. Next, we will conclude how the transmitting nerve impulse works. The place where an axon meet another cell is called a synapse. What synapse? Place where an axon meet another cell. This is where the transmission of a nerve impulse to another cell occurs. Here, all the exchange of the information, or you can say anything, the transmission takes place. The cell that sends the nerve impulse is the presynaptic cell. The cell that is sending is the presynaptic, and the cell which is gaining is the postsynaptic cell. Some synapses are purely electrical and make direct electrical connection between neurons. There are two types of synapses, chemical as well as electrical. Electrical, they are purely electrical and make electrical connection between the neurons. Now let's talk about the chemical synapse. What's a chemical synapse? At chemical synapse, both presynaptic and the postsynaptic area of the cell are full of the molecular machinery that is involved in the transmission of the nerve impulse. Okay, both presynaptic and postsynaptic are involved. The effect of the neurotransmitter on a postsynaptic cell depend mainly on what? On the type of receptor it activates, making it possible for a particular neurotransmitter to have different effect in the various targets. Okay, let explain this again. The effect of neurotransmitter on a postsynaptic cell depend mainly on the type of receptor. It depends the type of receptor that it activates. The type of receptor it activates, it act on the target according to the receptor. Like it has a particular neurotransmitter to have different effect on the various targets. Okay, thank you so much. This was my topic of the today. Thank you.